difficulty accessing my files just a moment ago, so I've got a video embedded in here that I don't think I'll be able to play, so on tomorrow. And if I'm able to access my files, I'll do that. Okay. So just to recap where we're headed, we're going to look at the endocrine system, and as you notice, your homework for handout number 4 that you're submitting tomorrow dives right into the endocrine system. That handout was dealing more with actual pathways, and then today we'll look at more just some foundations of the endocrine system and not necessarily specific pathways. We'll just recap what the endocrine system is and how it functions. And then tomorrow, and maybe into Thursday, we'll look at pathways, which will follow along with your handout number 4. Okay? So, endocrine system is analogous to the nervous system in that it's one of our other major extrinsic regulators. Okay? So, there's going to be some similarities. If you remember, the last 2 weeks we've talked about the nervous system, and what it does is to control our effector organs like our skeletal muscles or endocrine glands. You can kind of give it a brief name and call it like a wired system, if you will, because there are physical nerves, that axons that extend out towards the effector organ. You could, when you go to anatomy, you could dissect something, you could find the nerves, and there's a physical, you know where the nerve started, you know where it ends. And so you can kind of call it a wired system. By contrast, the endocrine system also controls target organs or effector organs, but there is no like obvious, clear, direct connection between the endocrine gland and the target which it controls. And so if we want to keep with this kind of simple analogy, you can call that a wireless system, if you will. But the whole point is there's still going to be an extracellular messenger still controlling an effector cell. But the effector cell is now far, far, far away from where the endocrine system or when the endocrine gland is. Okay, so the big thing is the nervous system releases what type of chemicals? We call those neurotransmitters. And the endocrine system is going to release things called hormones. Okay? And all the same things that we've learned in Chapter 5, the solubility, is still very critical. We still need to understand whether hormones are hydrophilic or lipophilic. Receptors and all that is going to play back into here. So if we look at the endocrine glands, they're not physically connected, but they're throughout the body. And when we did our brain dissection a couple of weeks ago, we actually saw some endocrine gland structures right there in the brain itself. If we were to get a visual on, although the nervous system and the endocrine system, right, one is wired, one is wireless, whatever, however you want to call it, they do work together, and all of our systems are integrated, interrelated with one another. And so just because the nervous system controls something doesn't mean that the endocrine system cannot. The endocrine and nervous system can regulate many of the same types of structures in the body. An example is the control of heartbeat. If I want to slow down the heart rate, which system controls that? We learned last unit would be the parasympathetic nervous system. However, I can speed up the heart by utilizing a neurohormone from the adrenal medulla. Okay, so that can be controlled by both the nervous system and the endocrine system. And so you can collectively look at these two studies together, and it's called neuroendocrinology. So you may go on one day and become a neuroendocrinologist. Okay, so you're looking at not just the endocrine effect on our body, but how the nervous system ties into it. And so what that means is we can't put the nervous system behind us. Even though we just had a test yesterday, it's going to keep haunting you as a student. It's going to keep regulating our body systems. I have for you in your handout a little summary comparing, contrasting the nervous system and the endocrine system. And to be honest, we introduced these similarities and differences way back at the beginning of the semester and reiterated some features of the nervous system, and now we'll look more specifically at the endocrine system. And so if we look at what the endocrine system is, it's just a bunch of glands that are considered to be ductless. We became familiar with that in the first unit. What we learned is when our glands develop, the duct stops growing, and so they have these little secreting cells, but they're highly vascularized. And so what they do is they release, you said, hormones into the circulatory system. If we look at where some of our glands are located, as I mentioned, we saw some least one lab, I think maybe both labs, pointed out the pineal glands in the brain. We also looked at the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, which if you were in lab yesterday became a lot more familiar with, and then today you will become more familiar with these structures. So in the brain alone, we have some neuroendocrine glands. In the neck as well, there's 3 types of hormones that come from the structure associated with the thyroid gland in the neck, so head, neck. Behind the chest, your sternum, is the thymus gland. We won't talk about it because it actually degenerates as you get older, so talk about some more, these are very important, but more profound glands in the body. Definitely we've already seen the adrenal glands some. We look at the medulla as far as sympathetic source of epinephrine and norepinephrine into the blood. But the outer cortex is really complex, so we'll talk about it too. Pancreas, you've heard of insulin, glucagon, and there's another hormone produced there. Ovaries, testes, and these are some examples of endocrine glands. And what they do is they release hormones, or maybe a neurohormone, and the whole thing we said is similar, so they're going to target a tissue that has a specific receptor. It's going to bring about a specific effect, whether it be opening and closing ion channels, activating a second messenger system, protein synthesis, so on and so forth. All right, so up till now we've talked about the endocrine system when we said it regulates things that last longer, and in the body long is more than a few milliseconds. Okay, so a few seconds, minutes, hours, whatever the case may be. And some examples of processes in your body that require this long-term hormonal control include metabolism. Your metabolism is regulated by hormones. Your water balance, you may not be aware of it, but is actually regulated by the endocrine system. Circulatory system, we just gave an example of the endocrine system to control the heart. The digestive system, although I mentioned we're really not going to talk about it much, it too has some hormonal influence. Your stress, and again this will be your long-term stress response, is hormonally controlled. You hear if you listen on the radio or the TV or that, it's like cortisol blast or whatever they are, right? We're talking about the endocrine system and some hormones that are released during the stress response. Endocrine system is huge for early growth and development, which you may be more familiar with. Remember surviving your teenage years, right? Okay, 13 or whatever, and all the awkwardness, growthy, lengthy, pimply stuff, okay, controlled by hormones, okay, the endocrine system. And it's also very critical for the reproductive system, maintenance of pregnancy, and everything else. So we'll talk about the reproductive system a little bit in this chapter, and the hormones involved in it. Okay, so those are some examples of what's considered to be more long-term regulated activities besides more than just a muscle contraction or whatever the case may be. This is a video I doubt I have access to, but I will try. Yeah, I don't. Okay, so I'll come back to that. I was just going to introduce some of the hormones. I'll try to have it pulled up tomorrow. Okay. The endocrine system is complex, just like the nervous system, just like whatever system fill in the blank. Okay, and what makes the endocrine system complex for you as a student is some glands produce multiple hormones. Raise your hand if you were in lab yesterday. Did your eyes do like this when I was listing all the hormones that could come from the hypothalamus alone, right? That's a good example. You don't have to have one gland producing only one hormone. Okay, so our glands are built to make different types of hormones. It's just efficient that way. As well, even more confusing maybe, is that some hormones are produced by multiple glands. Like this hormone called somatostatin. It comes not only from the hypothalamus, but is also produced by the liver, or not the liver, by the pancreas. Okay, so one hormone can be produced by multiple tissues in the body. And of course, the third point, we should be able to understand that the hormones target multiple tissues, okay, which can bring about multiple effects, which should align with what you've studied in the second unit. You have the billions of tissues in our cells. You don't have to have one hormone targeting just a few of those cells, right? It can target all billions, maybe, of the cells. And of course, our target tissue could be influenced by multiple hormones. So for example, my skeletal muscles can certainly be responsive to testosterone and estrogen and epinephrine and whatever, right? Can be responsive to all of those because it has what for each of those hormones? Receptors. Very good. Furthermore, not all hormones are released at the same rate. And what I'd like for you to add here on this statement is this ties to what we learned in Chapter 5. It depends on the solubility. Do you remember? Lipophilic hormones, as soon as they're made, they just diffuse out because we can't store them. And then conversely, hydrophilic hormones can be stored, released whenever. So not all hormones are secreted all at the same time. And the next point we've already identified as well. Some hormones are actually neurotransmitters, but in the bloods we call them what? What's another word that we could write in here? We call them neurohormones. Let's just write that in there. Okay. Furthermore, some of our endocrine glands, that's their job. They make hormones. That's all they do. Conversely, some structures that produce hormones, that's not their main job. Does anybody read ahead and see what the term is for those organs whose only job is to produce hormones? What do we call those glands? They're called what? Trophic hormone is a term to describe a hormone that comes from a gland which targets another gland. So it doesn't necessarily indicate the primary role of which it came from. So no, but that's a good, I related. Yeah, very good. When you read chapter 6 tonight, okay, you're going to read about primary and secondary endocrine glands. Okay? A primary gland is one that what? A primary endocrine gland is one that, what do you think? Exclusively endocrine function. Very good. Okay. So an example I have up here, I don't have an example up here, so pituitary gland. Okay. Anterior pituitary, that's what it does. It makes hormones. Okay. And so the exclusive endocrine function would be a primary endocrine gland. Conversely, other organs, they make endocrine products, they make hormones, but that's not their main job, so we call those what? Secondary. Okay, very good. An example I have listed here is like the testes. What do you think the main job of the testes is to do? In what fashion? She said procreation. What is the role of the testes in procreation? To make? In sperm cells, right? So yeah, sperm cells, right? Okay, which is a component of semen. So the primary job of testes is to manufacture sperm cells, spermatogenesis, but it also has the ability to produce a couple of hormones. And so it is they're technically an endocrine gland, but it's not their main job. It's their second job, is to produce hormones. So we have primary and secondary. We'll talk about predominantly primary endocrine glands, but also a few secondary endocrine glands in this chapter. The nervous system, still haunting you, right? It can certainly override the endocrine system, right, by negative feedback mechanisms. And it can override what happens. Maybe a better way to describe this, I have it on the very last sentence, is when the sympathetic nervous system is activated. My abbreviation down here in the last bullet, S and S. When the sympathetic nervous system is activated, or when you're in that fight or flight system, right, control, the nervous system can take over the more slow-acting endocrine system, because the nervous system needs to fix whatever the problem is, or perceived problem, if you will. So typically our blood sugar levels are hormonally controlled by insulin and glucagon to maintain our set point levels. But if we become fight or flight, what do you think has to happen to our blood levels of glucose? They should increase. Okay? And so the nervous system can promote that increase above what we call our resting set point of glucose levels. So the nervous system is now trying to take it over. Our hormone release, we learned, is not always consistent. It depends on a few factors. This is going to tie into what we learned in the Unit 1. We said the different types of stimuli that can cause the release of different products include humoral, which is what? Hormones, is that what you said? Hormone, actually I have it listed separately. Hormone is, we can use for point number 3. Let's go to point number 3. We could say hormonal, or I could say, what word did you say earlier? Trophic. So item 3 where it says hormonal, and I've got it here, and I'll use the word again, but right now since we've been in lab and we've seen this, trophic, T-R-O-P-H-I-C, for point number 3. Hormones can cause the release of hormones. Point 2, what can cause the release of hormones? Nerves. Neurotransmitter can tell a gland to release its product. The point 1, humoral. First couple of days of class, we said what does humoral mean? Blood factors. Okay. Something in the blood that's not a neurotransmitter, that's not a hormone, can actually cause the release of hormone products from an endocrine gland. For example, that I've already given already, to regulate my blood glucose levels, what hormones regulate it? My blood sugar levels are regulated by 2 hormones called insulin and, did I catch the other one? Glucagon. Okay. Insulin is released under humoral control of what levels of sugar? When your sugar is high. Okay. So insulin is humorally controlled by high levels of sugar. Sugar is not a hormone, sugar is not a neurotransmitter, but it's in the blood and it causes the release of insulin, okay, or glucagon, okay, depending on the levels of it. Okay. So, does that make sense? Humoral factors, okay. Blood factors can trigger the release of hormones. Nerves can trigger the release of hormones as well as other hormones. And the word we're going to use is called trophic. This image is shown for you in your handout. On the far left, we have another example of humoral stimulus. What's the humoral stimulus in the left panel in that sample? What factor in the blood is causing the release of some hormone? Calcium. Okay. Calcium is not a hormone, it's not a neurotransmitter, but it activates the release of this hormone we'll see called parathyroid hormone. The second panel is illustrating the innervation of the adrenal medulla or medulla, okay, and how it releases epinephrine and norepinephrine. Okay, so humoral, neural. In the third panel, we're going to get a glimpse into some trophic stimulus as well. This hormone causes that hormone, and that causes this. Okay, so you'll become really familiar with the trophic pathway when you complete your handout number 4 and turn it in tomorrow. Okay. Again, aligning with what we learned in Chapter 5, even though there's a hormone in the blood, the target cell still needs to have its receptors, and we need to make sure the blood levels of the hormone is adequate, the receptors are adequate, and the affinity of the receptor is adequate. I think point number 1 we can understand. The blood levels of the hormone, are we above set point, within set point, or below set point? Okay. It's going to influence how the target cell responds, over, adequate, or under. As well as the number of receptors. We learned in Chapter 5, we said receptors can be added by a process called what? What's the name, the term to describe the addition of receptors? We call that upregulation. Okay, so we could upregulate to the set point level of receptors, or we could downregulate to the correct level. So we know that our blood levels of hormones can change. We know that the number of receptors at the target cell can change. But we didn't really address too much about the receptor structure or its affinity for a particular hormone. What does that mean? The affinity. receptor for a hormone?
How well they accept it?
How well it accepts it. Very good. Just because there's a receptor built and there's a hormone present, right, not all interactions happen at the same rate. Some are slower, some are faster, some are better, some are weaker, whatever the case may be. So we've got to take that into consideration as well when we're looking at the endocrine system. So not only is the receptor there, how quickly or slowly does it operate, or the affinity of the receptor. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on these terms. We became somewhat familiar with them in chapter, I think, 5 maybe, but I want to elaborate it a little bit more. And if you recall, I just mentioned a moment ago that a single cell may be responsive to multiple hormones, insulin and glucagon and epinephrine and, right, just keep listing them, okay? And so what we've got to take into consideration is that because a given cell is responsive to many hormones, we've got to say, well, what happens when multiple hormones are present at the same time? Is there an effect, a good effect, a bad effect, no effect, okay? And these terms will help summarize those interactions of multiple hormones on a particular cell. The little guys are representing the hormones, and they're eating food, and the action that they're doing is illustrating the effect of the target cell, okay? And so we can see that when multiple hormones are present, the hormones may be having a permissive effect, or a synergistic effect, or an antagonistic effect. Two of these three terms, actually just one of these terms we've become familiar with already. What's the term that we've seen already? Antagonist. What do you think it means if two hormones are antagonistic to one another? They're working against each other. So when two hormones are present and they're antagonistic, they oppose each other's effects. When two hormones are present and they're antagonistic, they oppose each other's effects. I could keep using the same example that I've been using all morning long, insulin and glucagon. Insulin and glucagon are called antagonistic. Why? Okay, very good. Because one raises our blood sugar, the other lowers our blood sugar. And so insulin and glucagon are an example of antagonistic hormones. And we'll see a few others coming up. Does it make sense on what antagonistic means? And how two hormones are antagonistic? We can also see some hormones that are synergistic. What do you think that means? They work together. And they work together and the output is enhanced. Not only do they just kind of get along, the effect of the cell is amplified when both hormones are present. An example is, right, from lab today and yesterday. Which hormone are we really studying in lab? Hormone called thyroxine. Has something to do with body heat and metabolism, which leads to a change in body heat, okay? Thyroxine enhances metabolism. There's another hormone called growth hormone that also enhances metabolism. Okay? So those two hormones, when present, they are synergistic, so our metabolism not only increases, but it increases significantly than if you just had growth hormone, than if you just had thyroxine, instead of a significant increase in activity at a target cell. And they're synergistic to one another. Are you okay on the terminology synergistic, how we're amplifying or additive kind of effect and helping each other out? The third one is called permissiveness. And I saved this one for last because there is a difference in definition between what I was trained, what it means, and what your book says it is. And so I'll give you both definitions. And because there's a discrepancy between my definition and the textbook, and I've never gone out to look out who's right, it may not be a right, I generally don't ask this question. question or this definition on the exam because of the difference. But permissiveness. What do you think from the image is described here about two hormones that are permissive? They have no effect on each other. Very good. Okay. In permissiveness, the way I understand permissiveness, if two hormones are permissive, they're present. They both do their own thing, if you will. Okay. It doesn't hinder the other hormone's effect. Doesn't help the other hormone's effect. It's almost as neither was present, and they're both doing their thing. Where the difference lies, in my understanding, in the textbook is the textbook says they have to be present. Where the textbook defines it as two hormones have to be present for them to do their own thing, whether and not have an additive effect. So, what it's saying is one won't work without the other. That is where the difference is in our definitions. Okay? But clearly, if they're present together, they're present. So that the hardcore, like they have to be present in order to have effect, is where I don't agree with the definition. I may be wrong, but I don't know. But for example, if two hormones are permissive, let's say insulin, which changes our glucose receptors, and a hormone called ACTH. Okay? They're both present, they both do their own thing. They're not helping each other out. They're not hurting each other. They're having separate effects at the cell at the same time. Okay. And so we'll see these terms used here when we're looking at different hormones. They may be permissive. Really the ones we'll talk about most will be synergistic or antagonistic. We'll say this is antagonistic to this or synergistic to this. Okay. What questions do you have about these terms or how we'll apply them in the endocrine system? Okay. Where to use this term? Tropic. The term tropic, you'll see it with and without the H. I like to throw the H in there, so I think it's more European if you throw the H in there. Tropic, I think if you read it without the H, it's tropic, and then mine wanders, right? The beach somewhere. We got to stay focused on those hormones, so throw the H in there, you won't get lost. Okay? A tropic hormone is a hormone that comes from a gland, and its target cell is a what? Another hormone, another endocrine gland, which does influence hormone secretion. So a tropic hormone, it comes from an endocrine gland and it targets an endocrine gland. Okay? To regulate the secretion or inhibition of particular hormones at that target. The areas which we'll find, the two glands which we'll find tropic hormones coming from include our hypothalamus, but also the anterior pituitary are the major source of our tropic hormones. Hypothalamus and pituitary. Anterior pituitary, to be specific. What questions do you have over this using this word called tropic? All right, here's actually the cool part, if you will, about the endocrine system, is when it goes awry. We all appreciate it when it's working well, and I think it's most interesting when there's a disorder with the endocrine system. Now, I'm not saying it's cool to have a disease, but it's interesting to see how a hormone, when absent, can have profound effects on the body. And unfortunately, we don't have time to get into all the endocrine disorders and diseases. But if we were just to kind of summarize what would be caused or causing an endocrine disorder, there's two primary ways. And check the bullets on your handouts kind of got messed up, so I would go ahead and number them. The first is, the most obvious, is the concentrations of a particular hormone may not be in set point levels. And we know that a particular hormone could be over or under secreted. If it's under secreted, it's called hyposecretion. Conversely, it could be hypersecreted or oversecreted. And the reason a hormone may be undersecreted or not secreted at all is maybe the gland is not there due to surgery or injury or just developmental problem. Genetically, maybe there's a dietary condition where someone's not getting the prerequisites to manufacture the hormone. Classic example, there's people who live in areas where there's not a readily available iodine. Does anybody know what gland that affects? Where iodine is not readily available? The thyroid gland. Iodine is critical for thyroxine production. Okay, so if it's not present, we can't make it. We undersecrete it, right, and all the effects in that case. Okay, so maybe just a lack of proper nutrition can actually influence the endocrine system. Immune problems, right, diseases, whatever the case may be, can actually cause an undersecretion of a hormone. The good thing is, if you've got money and you can go to a doctor, you could get a drug and you can replace that hormone. Okay? And you may have to supplement it. You may know somebody who has to take thyroxine supplements. They call it Synthroid or something like that. Just take it daily, or even ladies, if you're on the pill, if you will, you're basically change up the secretion of a particular hormone by replacing it pharmaceutically. Conversely, hormones may also be oversecreted, and it's called hypersecretion. And the primary reason that a hormone may be oversecreted is usually a tumor, whether it be cancerous or not. Okay? And so these are obviously a lot more difficult to treat. How do you think you should treat it? If you have a tumor causing hypersecretion, surgically. Okay. Cut it out, cut the gland out, cut the tumor out, whatever the case may be. And then you may become what? Hyposecretion. But then the good thing is you can retreat it. You can replace the missing hormone. Okay. So, right, one reason, or a couple of reasons, someone may have an endocrine disorder is just poor secretion of the hormones, over or under secreting them. Second, maybe overlooked reason why there's an endocrine disorder is maybe the target tissue is not responsive, and it goes back to the receptors and how they're built. Maybe the receptors are built wrong because of a genetic disorder, whatever the case may be. So it may not necessarily be the gland's fault, if you will. If there's a disease, it could be the target tissue that needs to be studied as well. All right, so unfortunately we won't talk about the disorders. We're going to have to look at most of our glands under homeostasis. On the end of the bottom of page 3, I've kind of got an isolated box for you, and you'll see this theme. Hopefully you'll see this theme through the rest of the handouts. We're going to look at the different endocrine glands, and we're going to focus on 3 major points for each of the glands. We're going to look at the hormone or hormones released. Okay. We're also going to look at and make a note here, the primary function, the main function of the hormones. We just cannot get all inclusive in this class. And so some of these hormones we'll look at in just the female or just the male, although they're present in both the genders. And so we'll look at the main function of each of the hormones, and we'll look at the primary regulators as well. What are the big ways in which these hormones are controlled for their release? Okay. So you should see this theme. And I have, if you turn the page and look at your handouts, you'll see an example on like page 4. I tried to box off each hormone. Okay, so you can see those 3. Can you see where I'm going with the 3 bullet points? Okay, for each of the little hormones. As well as if you survey the rest of your handouts, you'll notice next to the boxes there's probably an image. The image is going to structurally back up the functional description on the left-hand side. And so we're going to, just 2 ways of learning, whether you're a visual or a more textual learner, both ways are covered here. So that's where we're going. Any questions on how the outline of this is? All right. Looks like we're doing good, and we're going to start out with the structure which you're going to study in lab today and yesterday, which is called the pituitary. The proper name for the pituitary is called the hypophysis. Just say that once, right? It's fun to say. Let's say it together, because y'all fall asleep on it. Hypophysis. Hypophysis. It's fun to say. And it brings a smile to your face, right? You sound smart when you go home and tell your friends. All right. The hypophysis is actually two. We call it one thing, but it's actually two structures kind of grouped together. And you saw this when you did the brain dissection. Remember, I had you guys turn the brain models or the brains over, and I said, well, look at that little swollen thing in the middle. That's the hypophysis. I called it the pituitary gland. And it has a front and a back. They're called the anterior and the posterior. And if you remember from our dissection, you notice it's like physically right below the hypothalamus. Okay? Because if you were in lab yesterday, you know the hypothalamus is critical to the control of the hypophysis. I'll use this image for most of your handouts, but this is just one of probably a billion images of the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. So what I don't want you to prescribe to is that the anterior pituitary is on the left side of the image always, or the right side, or whatever. Right? It's just that someone drew this. They could have drawn it the other way, flipped it around, whatever. And so what we're going to look at is how to scrutinize the structure of the pituitary gland to differentiate the different regions and therefore the function of them. The anterior and the posterior pituitary are properly called the neurohypophysis and the adeno or adenohypophysis. The neurohypophysis is made up of, what do you think? Nerves, gives itself away. And the adeno or adenohypophysis is the glandular or the hormone secreting part. So right there in that one little structure, we have hormones and neurohormones being released. Different structure, different function. I think I've been kind of slipping on that, haven't I? I haven't said that last day or two. Dang. I'm going to say it 3 times tomorrow now. All right. So I want to spend some time on this image. I know that it's grayscale if you've got your handouts, but it's a good image, so I want to spend some time here. This, you'll notice, is still the relationship between the hypothalamus and the pituitary. This image is flipped. So the anterior pituitary is now on the opposite side of the image. I'm trying to illustrate. The critical thing when you look at this is to acknowledge we should see our familiar nerves. You see our cell bodies, axons, axon terminals. So you can't purge all the information which you learned in the Unit 2 material. Okay? So we still have synapses, graded potentials, all that stuff happening here. What is down here at our axon terminals? What is stored down there that could be released? Well, yes, it's not stored in there. It could be. What is stored in the end of a nerve? Neurotransmitter. Okay, regulated by calcium. Okay. So we have neurotransmitters stored down here in the posterior pituitary region of the pituitary. And you'll notice have cell bodies that control it. And then if we look at the anterior pituitary, you notice that the hypothalamus still has nerves, and it looks like they're kind of going towards the anterior pituitary. But you should notice that they don't actually reach to the anterior pituitary. Do you see that? And what we're going to add to in just a minute is that this little blood circulation right here between the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary is critical for how the hypothalamus controls the anterior pituitary. So where we're going is we're going to see a bunch of trophic hormones or neurohormones from the hypothalamus released to control the anterior pituitary. So it gets a little bit more complex. Okay? So if we're looking at this image, I think, is it labeled for you? Go ahead. It's labeled for you, but maybe we want to circle the area where it says it's the posterior pituitary, where it says the posterior lobe. And again, what type of structure, what kind of tissue is here? Nervous tissue. Nervous tissue. We see nerve axons down there at the posterior pituitary. Okay. Conversely, on the anterior lobe, we have what type of tissue? Doesn't look like a nerve at all. What'd you say? Joe? You may have said it, I just can't hear. Endocrine, thank you. Yeah, we have good old endocrine tissue in there. Okay. What I want to highlight on is this little blood circuit between, I think we'll be able to see green or orange. Okay. What I want to highlight is this little blood circuit between the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary. Okay. That blood circuit is called the hypophyseal portal system. Technically, you can add the prefix hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system. It's the blood system between the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary. Hypothalamo, coming from the hypothalamus. Hypothalamo-hypophyseal, so it's between the hypothalamus and the hypophysis, which is our pituitary. Good job. This is called the hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system. Really specific terminology to illustrate. There's a special blood circuit that takes blood from the hypothalamus to the pituitary. Okay? And the hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system, might as well add it here as we're speeding through the semester. It transfers, you could say, trophic hormones from the, takes trophic hormones from the hypothalamus straight to the anterior pituitary. This blood circuit's really cool in that a neurohormone can be released from the hypothalamus. It doesn't have to go to your heart and back and then hopefully get to the anterior pituitary. It just shunts. Just a little quick journey, if you will. Neurohormones hop in and then diffuse out at the anterior pituitary. So we can secrete our hypothalamic hormones in low concentration. Right there. Okay. You can also see listed on each side, the neurohypophysis releases only 2 neurohormones into the blood circuit. How many does the anterior pituitary release? 6. Man. All right. So the big thing is identifying the nervous system, the hypothalamus nerves, right? From the hypothalamus, extend into the actually make up the posterior pituitary, and then contrasting that to the anterior pituitary. Hypothalamic nerves still control the anterior pituitary, but they stop in the middle and release their hormones into the blood. They go right into the anterior pituitary. Before I move on, what questions do you have about some of these structures between the hypothalamus, the posterior pituitary, the hypothalamus, and the anterior pituitary? Blood circuit. And I'm just going to repeat this in our text as well. The neurohypophysis of the posterior pituitary, it receives, stores, and releases. I have hormones. You could put in there neurohormones from the hypothalamus. So it's a neural connection. What terminology is missing in this description? It receives, stores, and releases hormones, but it does not do what? What does the posterior pituitary not do? It doesn't make them. The posterior pituitary just acts on terminals. That's all it is. So all the stuff that we concluded in chapter 11, okay, we're in chapter 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? Where a neurotransmitter is stored at the axon terminals. Okay. There are 2 classes of neurohormones that are released from the posterior pituitary, including oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. Oxytocin will abbreviate OT, and antidiuretic hormone will abbreviate ADH. I want to give you the caution now On these hormones, all of the hormones have some abbreviation. My caution to you is to not learn the abbreviation first. Learn the name. Once you learn the name, then you can correctly use the abbreviation. But you'll notice it's easy if you start getting little abbreviations, it's easy to get them mixed up. You wrote TSH and you meant TRH. Well, they're completely different hormones, different effects, different sources. So if you know the term, then you can apply it, the acronym properly. Okay? So we're going to look at oxytocin first. We've heard of this one. We used it already this semester. It does come from the posterior pituitary. And we're going to look at it strictly in the female. And what do you think it does in the female? It's used in labor, right? For the onset and continuation of labor. And what it directly targets is smooth muscle. And in the female, the smooth muscle which it targets is obviously in the uterus, but also the mammary glands. Why do you think we should target the mammary gland smooth muscle during labor? Milk letdown. Okay? So as soon as that baby's born, it needs food, right? And so oxytocin helps promote that milk letdown. Oxytocin is one of the few hormones regulated by a positive feedback mechanism. And it was our example for positive feedback in the first unit. So it tells us if oxytocin's high, we surge some more. Okay, surge some more. Obviously, just like any other positive feedback mechanism, there'll be an off, right? Baby and placenta are delivered, right? Milk's let out. But to get there, we just keep surging the oxytocin. And so because it's released by the posterior pituitary, it's clearly regulated by the nervous system. So the regulator is the nervous system and the hypothalamus, because that's where it's made, stored. So the cells of the hypothalamus would have to generate action potentials in order for oxytocin to be released. So you'll notice if you have the handout, you'll notice right next to it, I've got an image. And so to point it out how we're going to use this, we'll look at any hormones made in the hypothalamus and whether they're released from the anterior or posterior. These things here are blood vessels, just representing the general blood circuit. And then on the bottom, I would have the target tissue, so we can look at the effects there. So where should I have oxytocin being manufactured? Where? Hypothalamus. Okay, so just write OT is made here. It's transported in vesicles and stored and released from the posterior pituitary. So big fancy arrow, and nerve axons, right, stored. So released from the posterior pituitary, goes into the general circuit, and in the female, the structure that I have on the left, someone's getting a beating next door, or? The thing on the left is the uterus, and cross-section of the uterus. The very bottom structures are the smooth muscle cells. So the target would be the smooth muscle there in the uterus to do what? Contract. And the tissue on the right, mammary tissue. So it'll be targeting the smooth muscle here. And it can contract. Are you okay on how we're going to align the text with the images? All right. What questions do you have about oxytocin? How it's regulated, where it comes from, what it does? It's coming from the central nervous system. In the rest of the brain, it's considered to be dopamine. We already talked about dopamine. But out in the body, we call it oxytocin when it's released from the posterior pituitary. And so therefore, males have it as well. It targets smooth muscle tissue there as well in the male structures. Another hormone released from the posterior pituitary is called antidiuretic hormone. The proper name for it is called vasopressin, and I'm fairly confident that's the terminology which your textbook uses, is vasopressin. I like to use an antidiuretic hormone because it's so descriptive. Working backwards, on all these hormones it's easy. Work backwards. It's a hormone that diuretic has something to do with water release. And so this is an antidiuretic hormone, so it must promote water retention. Antidiuretic hormone we're going to see now and in a couple of weeks at the kidneys for water retention. It also is going to have an effect on our blood vessels to help elevate our blood pressure. It has a complex neurohormones, but the primary job that it does is promoting direct water reabsorption at your kidneys to prevent, if it's released, to prevent dehydration, or we stop secreting it when we are over hydrating. So if you drink, right, these people with water, if you're drinking water all the time, your ADH level should be probably, what'd you say? My ADH level should be a little bit what? High or low? If you're drinking water all the time, your ADH levels would be low. Okay? If you're like me and you drink nothing but coffee, your ADH levels will be higher. Okay? And so the whole point is to make sure your water balance and your blood plasma content is adequate. So we'll see ADH now, but we'll talk about it in the cardiovascular system and in the renal system. This is just illustrating when it's released or retained. How it's regulated is humorally by blood solute levels. Okay, so the stuff in your blood. If your blood solute levels are high, antidiuretic hormone is actually what? What do you think? If my blood solute levels are really high, should I release or not release this? I should, yes. If my blood solute levels are really high, do what? We should retain the water. So my blood solutes are really high because I drink nothing but coffee and Coke and whatever else. My blood solutes will become really concentrated. So that high concentration of solutes triggers the release of ADH, which is, we'll see in the last unit, is going to cause me to retain water. What would happen if I retain water? My blood solutes are high. The water retention would do what? I'm retaining water now. What's happening to my solutes? What's the effect? The effect is I'm concentrated. I have water. You got it. You can do this. If I have a bunch of coffee in my blood and my body's keeping water, what's happening to the coffee? It's becoming dilute. I mean, the whole point is to dilute out the high solute concentration. Okay. So again, if my blood solute levels are really high and concentrated, I retain water under the influence of ADH to try to dilute it out. Okay. Is the point of that. Conversely, if my blood solute levels are too low, do I want to release ADH? No, because that would have a really bad effect. It would dilute them out even more. So if my blood solutes are too low, antidiuretic hormone is inhibited. Okay. So how would I draw this? ADH is made where? What structure are we in? It's made in the hypothalamus, transported and stored in the posterior pituitary. It's released when? Primarily when? Very good. When solute concentration is high, antidiuretic hormone is released, goes into our blood, and we can see our two primary target tissues. On the right is our what? What is that? Kidney. And its effect is to do what? Absorb water, right? To dilute out our solutes. Okay, so it retains water to dilute our blood plasma. What's another major target for an antidiuretic hormone, which we haven't really addressed yet? Other blood vessels to do what? You want to catch? You want to catch what it does at our blood vessels? They constrict to bring our blood pressure up. Okay. I want you to become really familiar with ADH. We're going to use it throughout this semester. Okay, so it is a posterior pituitary release hormone. It's primary job is to promote water reabsorption at the kidneys, but it also has an effect on the rest of the cardiovascular system too, to raise our blood pressure. What questions at this point do you have about antidiuretic hormone? Those are the two neurohormones from the posterior pituitary. I'll introduce the anterior pituitary, and then we'll get into the hormonal pathways tomorrow. As we already identified when I presented the image on the previous page, there is no physical synapse between the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary. But the hypothalamus still controls the anterior pituitary. But we know there's a vascular connection, as we wrote down earlier, called the hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system. It's our neurohormones from the hypothalamus go into this blood circuit and target cells at the anterior pituitary. And because of that relationship, the hormones from the hypothalamus are called, technically they're trophic neurohormones. They're going to control the activity of the anterior pituitary. There are 6 hormones released by the anterior pituitary, the adenohypophysis. I have them colored slightly differently between trophic and non-trophic. And you could say 4 or 5 trophic, and then 1 to 2 non-trophic. Okay, 1 is hands down non-trophic. And I'll conclude with this. The first thing is, if you remember, I suggested not learning the acronyms, but actually learning the names, because most often the name will tell you something about the hormone. First thing is, they all tell you they're a hormone. Okay, we can handle that. And some of them directly tell you they are stimulatory, and then they'll tell you which target tissue. Like thyroid stimulating hormone is not too complex. It comes from the anterior pituitary and targets the thyroid. Okay. Growth hormone has an effect on growth, the metabolism. We can handle that. Prolactin probably has something to do with lactation, promoting lactation. Okay. A couple of them, adrenocorticotropic hormone, your eyes might freak out a little bit by looking at it, but if you work through it backwards, it's a hormone that is tropic to the adrenal cortex, okay, the outside of the adrenal gland. But the two of them really are descript. One says it's a hormone that's stimulating something called a follicle, another one's called luteinizing. Those don't make sense necessarily at face value, unless we use the proper term to call them gonadotropins. That can tell you something. Gonadotropins are tropic to the what? Gonads, ovaries and testes. The first 4 hands down are tropic. I mean, their names tell you they're tropic. Adrenocorticotropic, gonadotropins, and thyroid stimulating hormones. You may remember the name from live yesterday. Thyroid stimulating hormones, actually called thyrotropic. Tells us tropic to the thyroid gland. Okay, they tell us they are tropic. Growth hormone is also called somatotropin. It's tropic to the body. And growth hormone, the way that we will look at it in this semester, we're going to look at it as non-trophic role. Okay. However, it can be a tropic hormone if it targets the liver. But we're going to look at growth hormone on your skeletal muscles, your bone, your fat, which are not endocrine glands. Okay. And as well, prolactin, mammary tissue is clearly exocrine tissue. And so therefore it's hands down non-trophic in fashion. So what we're going to do, and if you notice in your handouts on page 5, this is pretty similar to what you're looking at for your handout number 4. Certainly complete handout number 4. I would complete handout 4 and then come back and complete this chart, but I want you to come back to class tomorrow with this chart on page 5 complete. Let me walk you through the chart so you're not confused on what to notice that there are 7 of them. Okay, I think it's right. 1, 2. Yep. And then where it says function, I want you to write stimulate or inhibit. And the first column that you're going to complete, you're going to say, is that hormone's function, is it going to be to stimulate or to inhibit? You'll just choose one of those words. The third column says the anterior pituitary hormone. Okay, so clearly the hypothalamus is targeting the anterior pituitary. We're going to see, for example, thyrotropin releasing hormone, the first one, TRH, its function, is it to stimulate or inhibit? Stimulate. Let's just go on the first one as an example. Stimulate. Which anterior pituitary hormone? Thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH. We're just working across. Do it.
Okay, so it's where and which one's the stimulate?
TRH. It stimulates the anterior pituitary release TSH. Does anybody else need help? Alright, so the next column says the target. Okay, so where do you think TSH targets? The thyroid glands. And the next thing you would write in is the thyroid glands. And the next column says, well, what's the effect of that hormone at the target? So what's the effect of TSH at the thyroid gland? Release T3 and T4. Release the thyroxine and the thyroid hormone. So complete that for the remainder of the hypothalamic trophic hormones. On the inhibitory hormones, say GHIH and PIH. Clearly, those are going to be what? IH probably stands for inhibitory. So they're on the, you won't be able to fill in the last 2 rows, or columns, excuse me, on those. There's no target, there's nothing to release, nothing to target, nothing to affect. Okay? I want you to complete that after you complete handout number 4, but you're submitting that tomorrow. And that'll make tomorrow's presentation go.